category 4, PLC for project plan. Now, I named it category 4 because of the 4th category of social reading developed by Bob Stein. Okay, so here we have like our question, what is our problem, a possible solution, and some timelines. So here's our big question. How can we design instruction to facilitate student collaboration and interaction? Is that going to be okay?
That's good.
Okay, that is to make class more distantly social, because we've all worried about how we're going to interact with text and how we can help students to interact with each other, since they are so very limited in what they can and can't do. Okay, so the problem is that our virtual students can't hold books very often and share them, and we can't use them in our classrooms, and that they have all these different circumstances, hindering their ability to interact collaboratively with each other and with text. So, a problem for PLCs, though, is lack of buy-in from the PLC members. We know we've all been forced to do things that we were absolutely not interested in and had no time for, and lack of adequate budget for the PLC. Okay, but this PLC is something we're all interested in, something that we have talked about, and about what to do. And so, according to Hort and Tobia, the advocates for PLCs view teacher isolation as a problem and professional collaboration as a solution. I think we're very fortunate that we have such a collaborative department. And in this essay, Taxonomy of Social Reading, Bob Stein, who is a co-founder of the Institute for the Future of the Book, talks about social reading, and he defines 3 categories. The first 3 are informal, some of them are very traditional. But category 4 is engaging in a discussion in the margins online, formal, synchronous, or asynchronous, and persistent, which is what I think we need. This category, if we do that, this is going to be a way to stimulate our kids to get them engaged, not only with the text, but with each other. A way to have them see how the others think, and I think that's really important, especially for the lower level readers, or the ones who aren't good at the deep thinking yet. This will help them to see what goes on in their friends' minds. So, social reading is really the solution, I think, to our problem of how to engage students with text and with each other. It incorporates discussion into the reading process. It turns into a community experience, because they have to work together. They have to annotate, they have to make notes, they have to discuss and respond to each other. Rhonda says that adopting social reading will help to bridge the gap created by various learning models between students. And we have that. We have traditional, which is not completely traditional because they can't be near each other, they can't touch the same things. Then we have the kids who are completely virtual, who have no contact with us or their classmates physically, as far as we know. And then we have the hybrid kids who are in and out. They're traditional for 2 days, and then they maybe have COVID, or they've been exposed and they're gone for 14 days and then they're back. And so this is a way they can stay connected. Okay, so some things that they can do, and we have done, collaboratively annotate short texts, write collaborative papers based on those annotations, reflect on their writing assignments. Rhonda, would you like to explain the collaboratively annotating short text that you and I did?
Oh,
You don't have to.
So, well, we assigned a poem, and students were to access the poem and talk about it in the margins, in the comment section. Different levels of thinking.
Yeah, and they were specifically supposed to do 3 different levels of thinking. And in AP, and I've done this in DE and I've done it in AP because I wanted to see how it was going to work before I did it with standard. In AP, we did a mini Gatsby paper. We were working on rhetorical analysis, and so they had to choose a passage, and they worked in a group. There were 3 people per group, and they had to read and annotate the passage together digitally, and they had to look specifically at diction, syntax, and structure. And then when they did that, they had to write a really short paper, 2 to 3 paragraphs, and they had to do that together. And so it forced them to really talk and do that, but they had to do it, all online. And then I think one thing that I picked up from Rhonda last year and that we've done in DE this year that has been really helpful to me is having the students reflect on their own writing. Because you can see where they're growing and where they're not. So Stein's idea of conversations in the margins is really kind of a back to future thing, because he pointed out in his essay, and it's a really good essay, that centuries before print, people would gather around books at universities and monasteries and make group notes in the margin as they read and studied together. And think about how many times you've done that. You sat around with your friends and discussed books and made notes in your margin, and you have participated in this social reading. And I mean, we're all English teachers and we're big old dorks, so that's what we like to do. But imagine being around a text, the only one, and getting to do that, to write on it. And that's really, this kind of is full circle, because this social reading can provide this conversation in the margins. It gives them a digital space. It can be asynchronous, it can be synchronous if we want it to, and it supports all levels of readers. Okay, so, but all this is based on some assumptions. Okay, that an English department PLC on social reading will allow us to better engage and serve our students. Thank you. That online asynchronous groups are viable, and I think we've seen that to an extent. They have been for our virtual students who have been engaged. I know that we see kids struggling too. And that students will respond positively to social reading. And so the other day after we did our collaborative reading of To His Coy Mistress in our DE class, we talked about it, like they did it, Thursday and Friday. It was when I was quarantined, and I did it with everybody on that day. And so the next week when they were back, we talked about it, and they said at first it made them very nervous, but that they did like it and that it helped them to understand what was going on. Okay, so a solution proposal is that we would have this Category 4 Social Reading PLC. So what we would need to do is to develop collaborative social reading assignments with our grade level colleagues, then assign them to our kids, have the kids complete them, and look at who did what, who did well, what went well and what didn't. And the kids need an opportunity to reflect on that experience as well, and we can gain a lot of information from those reflections. And then I think we could do that for a couple of rounds, and I've developed a little, a whole timeline for us. Do that for a couple of rounds, and then give the kids the opportunity to create their own. Excuse me. Because I think that would really show us what they've learned and how much they understand social reading, and would show them how much they learned and how much they understand it, and would help them to do that. Then we could do our own reflection, throughout the process. We could reflect on each stage and what we think is working and what's not, and how we might want to change it or improve it. And so a timeline would be basically now from January, since our 9 weeks doesn't really end until after Christmas. I thought this could give us time to do one collaborative assignment. And then have some student and teacher reflections in January, or that week we come back. And then have another collaborative reading in February and review that in March. And then in March, I was trying to finish this before spring break. They could do their own collaborative reading, create it, and then we could, look at all the data, see what we have, and present our findings to us, maybe to other departments, because it might be something that's useful. Like the history departments, they're struggling with it too. Math maybe even, but certainly science and history would be able to use it. So the principles and practices that we would need to apply to do this are modeling, collaboration, action research, student work study, and reflection. See if I have any questions. Becky, will you tell us about Actively Learn? Because I have not used it, and she introduced it to me, and I see that as a way to work with my standard children.
Sure. I enjoy using Actively Learn because it has the kids, it forces the kids, I should say, to slow down, because we know how students will just skim text, but Actively Learn will chunk it for them, and they cannot go any further in the text until they answer a multiple choice question, to complete, like, answer a poll, comment. I can have a question in there that says for students need to comment on 3 other classmates' annotation. Like, you can annotate within Actively Learn and share it with the class. And it's a great tool. And my favorite part of it is that the quiet kids, it helps them kind of have a voice in my classroom. And that's what I've really enjoyed with it.
Thank you. All right, does anybody have any other questions or comments or anything you want to add, something cool you've done in your room that might be helpful to us now?
I've had my kids annotate a single document, like I've just given a PDF and said, everybody open this and annotate and make notes and whatever. And it worked okay, but there were some drawbacks because it was a PDF, and although I think Cami is amazing, there just is a limitation when you're trying to get several people to do it at one time.
I agree. When I did it with Cami, it didn't work as well. When I did it with a Google Doc, it worked much better.
Yes.
Because they could all, I mean, we had a long string of, comments, but it worked better than it did with Cami. Okay. Well, thank y'all so much, and thank you for coming and sticking with me through all our technical difficulties before we were actually able to start. I really do appreciate you, and I guess that's it.